Hi, this is Dr. Liz Cox with CDFA's Animal Care Program, and this training is for pork producers to understand how they are to comply with Prop 12 and animal confinement regulations. The outline of this presentation, I'm going to go over some introductions about the Animal Care Program, Prop 12, and our regulations. Then I'm going to review as a pork producer, the confinement requirements under Prop 12, then go through the pork producer certification process, and then finally at the end, show our Animal Care Program website where more guidance documents can be found. The Animal Care Program was formed after the passing of Proposition 12 here in California in 2018. And Animal Care Program works within California Department of Food and Agriculture within the Animal Health and Food Safety Services Division. And we work to implement the Health and Safety Code of Prop 12 and also the California Code of Regulations, which are titled Animal Confinement Chapter, Animal Confinement Regulations, which were promulgated to implement Prop 12. Here's a screenshot of one of our guidance documents from our website. You can see the URL to it listed there down at the bottom, Regulatory Framework for Pork. And what this is showing is a basic outline of the requirements of animal confinement regulations, which is a series of registration, certifications, and then also CDFA accrediting certifying agents. So the first deadline that went into effect was for distributors as defined in our regulations, and they were required to register with CDFA as of January 1st, 2023. You can see there in this flow chart, they are towards the bottom, registered pork distributors. That's who's required to register. And then the deadline of this year was January 1st, 2024, was that distributors are required to have a third-party certification when they apply for a new registration with our animal care program or when they renew their registration, which is required to be renewed annually. The other thing that went into effect January 1st of 2024 is that pork producers for this presentation are required to have a third-party certification. And if you look at this flow chart up at the top, sow farm, so you can see that the yellow arrow is pointing at the registered pork distributors and also pointing up at the top at the pork producer that does need to be certified under the Prop 12 regulations. And it's the location where the breeding pigs are kept, which is why we called it the sow farm here, as far as understanding when we talk about a pork producer in the context of Prop 12 and animal confinement regulations. We're talking about the location where breeding pigs or sows and gilts that are kept for breeding are kept. So who is a pork producer? And this is really important because certainly outside the context of the animal confinement regulations and Prop 12, pork producer can mean a lot of different things to people, but specific to this presentation, specific to how do I comply with Prop 12, how does it impact my business, what do I need to do? A pork producer means a person that's engaged in the business of keeping, maintaining, confining, and or housing a female pig of the porcine species that's 6 months of age or older, or is pregnant for the purpose of commercial breeding to produce pork meat from that breeding pig or her immediate offspring for human consumption. So again, this is the definition in our regulations, and when I continue to go through this presentation and talk about pork producer certification, it's this type of pork producer that's required to be certified. So again, this is the pork producer is the location where a breeding pig is kept. And these are the girls, you can see the definition at the bottom there, a female pig of the porcine species that's kept for the purpose of commercial breeding, who's 6 months of age or older or pregnant. So again, it's the breeding herd, the female breeding herd. So as of January 1st of this year, all California pork producers are required to be certified. They're required to hold a valid certificate of compliance under Prop 12 regulations. And then also all whole pork meat sold in California is required to be from pork producers who hold a valid certificate of compliance. And then, as I mentioned on the regulatory framework slide, pork distributors are also required to have the third-party certification, a valid certificate of compliance, when they either apply for a new registration with the animal care program or when they annually renew their registration. So here's a description of the confinement standards for a pork producer, for the breeding pigs that that pork producer is keeping. The enclosure for a breeding pig needs to allow her to lie down, stand up, fully extend limbs, and turn around freely. The enclosure also needs to provide a minimum of 24 square feet of usable floor space per breeding pig. And to be considered, for her to be considered compliant, and then therefore her immediate offspring to be considered compliant to be processed into whole pork meat, the breeding pig needs to be kept in the enclosure, the compliant enclosure, for the duration of her production cycle. In production cycle, I have the definition here from the regulations. It means the life cycle of a commercial breeding pig for the generation of immediate offspring. A production cycle for gilts begins when they are 6 months or older and moved into an enclosure for breeding, and it ends when the litter of piglets is weaned. And for sows, a new production cycle for sows begins when each litter of piglets is weaned. And so a common question we get is in regarding gilts and GDUs, and when do the gilts need to be moved into Prop 12 compliant enclosures? And our direction is to refer to the production cycle definition. And so for the gilts that are now going to be kept for breeding, they need to be in Prop 12 compliant enclosures when that decision is made that they're going to be bred. So when they're growing, they can be, they're not considered the breeding pig yet, but once the decision is made by the pork producer, hey, I'm going to keep this gilt, I'm going to breed her, that's when she needs to be in the compliant enclosure. And I think another common question we do receive is about how do the confinement standards apply in regards to an enclosure as opposed to a barn, as opposed to a larger unit of measurement. And so it's important to note that the standards do apply at the level of the enclosure. So breeding pigs need to be kept in compliant enclosures. So when understanding how to comply with the requirements, the square footage, turning around freely, that's at the level of the enclosure and each breeding pig that's within the enclosure. So on our website, we do have a guidance document to help pork producers understand how to comply with the enclosure requirements. And so what this is showing is how to comply with the requirement of turning around freely in addition to 24 square feet of usable floor space if a breeding pig was kept in an individual enclosure. Prop 12 does not require that breeding pigs are housed in groups. They could be housed individually as long as that individual enclosure is compliant with the requirements of the square footage, turning around freely, standing up, and lying down. And so that's what this is showing as far as if a producer chooses to keep a breeding pig in an individual enclosure, to make sure that it complies with the standards of the square footage and turning around freely. We do recognize that many pork producers are going to manage their breeding pigs in groups. So we have a few different schematics there to demonstrate how a pork producer would comply. And it's looking at the number of animals within each enclosure, doing a calculation as far as length times width of the usable floor space, removing any usable floor space from that calculation that the breeding pigs could not access at all. So, for example, if equipment is completely taking up usable floor space, then that usable floor space would need to be removed. Also, the different examples here show that an enclosure has to allow the breeding pig to be able to turn around freely somewhere within the enclosure. And then also the exhibit F there is a schematic representing free access stalls. So that is fine to manage Prop 12 compliant pigs in free access stalls as long as there is space within the enclosure for her to turn around freely, and also that the free access stalls are unlocked in that the breeding pig has the choice to enter and exit a free access stall when she wants to. There are exceptions to the confinement standards, and these are listed in the Prop 12 statute as well as in our regulations. And you can see during exhibitions for fairs, during transportation, during slaughter, and then the third bullet point there, during examination, testing, individual treatment, or operation for veterinary purposes. The way that we see this used on pork producer operations would be when at the direction of the herd veterinarian, who's the veterinarian of record for a pork producer with a valid veterinary client-patient relationship. Based on the direction of that veterinarian, there's a written protocol for specific scenarios where the breeding pig needs to be moved into a non-compliant enclosure, and that the pork producer is following the direction of the herd veterinarian. And our guidance as far as for this individual treatment for veterinary purposes exemption is really about demonstrating that there is an opportunity for that breeding pig to re-enter the compliant enclosure. The next bullet point there is about farrowing. So traditional farrowing crates are allowed under Prop 12. So here it says that there's an exception to the confinement standard during the 5-day period prior to the breeding pig's expected date of giving birth and any day that the breeding pig is nursing piglets. So she's allowed to move into a traditional farrowing crate up to 5 days prior to her expected farrowing date, and then she needs to be moved out on the day of weaning. The final bullet point there as an exception is during temporary periods for animal husbandry purposes for no more than 6 hours in any 24-hour period and no more than 24 hours total in any 30-day period. And where we see this used on a pork producer operation would be really around heat detection and breeding. So yes, a breeding pig can still be considered Prop 12 compliant if she's confined for heat detection and breeding. It just has to be within the specific parameters as listed here in the law, and that she cannot be confined for more than 6 hours in any 24-hour period and no more than 24 hours total in any 30-day period. Okay, so pork producer certification. Again, as defined in animal confinement regulations, pork producers are required to be certified. This is a third-party relationship certification. It will be performed by a certifying agent, and it includes an on-site inspection by the certifying agent of the pork producer operation. During the on-site inspection, the certifying agent will verify that breeding pigs are kept according to the standards, that required records are maintained, and if the pork producer is operating as a split operation, which would mean a pork producer outside of California who on that location is maintaining Prop 12 compliant and Prop 12 non-compliant breeding pigs, the certifying agent would verify that segregation plan is being followed on a split operation. During the on-site inspection, the pork producer must allow access to all areas with covered animals and allow the certifying agent to review records. And this pork producer certification is renewed annually. And with that annual renewal, there is an annual on-site inspection. And here I have listed the URL and then a little picture screenshot. We do have a guidance document on our website that's specific to on-site inspection for the purpose of certification for pork producers. So certifying agent, I said that it can only be done by a certifying agent. So a certifying agent could be CDFA. It also could be a private company that is accredited by CDFA, or it could be another government entity that CDFA recognizes as providing functionally equivalent certification services to the requirements as listed in animal confinement regulations. So at this time, the available certifying agents would be CDFA and one of our private companies that we have accredited. We have not recognized any other government entities yet, but that might be a possibility in the future. And there I have the URL listed at the bottom. We list on our animal care program website all of the certifying agents. So the role of a certifying agent in regards to pork producer and pork distributor certifications is they handle the entire process. So once a pork producer selects who they want to work with to be their certifying agent, they apply directly with that company or with CDFA if that's who the pork producer chooses. The certifying agent does the on-site inspection, handles the correction of any non-compliances. They determine whether or not to grant the certification. They make the certification decision and issue a certificate of compliance to compliant operations. And any sort of monetary transaction that's between the specific certifying agent and the pork producer. So again, the first step would be for a pork producer who needs to be certified to select their certifying agent, and then they'll communicate directly with that certifying agent and apply with that certifying agent that they want to work with for certification. And they'll complete the application form. There is an application that would be filled out for new and then ongoing for the purposes of renewal annually. A pork producer can switch certifying agents if they want. So that's up to them, whether it's they've started the process with one certifying agent, it didn't work out, they want to use a different company, they can switch at that time, or perhaps they've been certified with one company and then next year they want to switch to a different certifying agent. They have the choice to do that. When a pork producer switches to a different certifying agent, it would just be treated as a new application with that new certifying agent. Pork producer certification does always require an on-site inspection. This on-site inspection for the purposes of certification would be a scheduled on-site inspection. So the certifying agent works together with the pork producer in regards to when this can be done, and also understanding the biosecurity requirements for that pork producer. The purpose of this on-site inspection is for the certifying agent to verify compliance with the breeding pigs, that they are being kept according to the Prop 12 standards, the required records are being maintained by the pork producer, and again, if the pork producer is outside of California and operating as a split operation, then the on-site inspection will verify that the producer is following the segregation plan for compliant and non-compliant breeding pigs and their immediate offspring. And Prop 12 on-site inspections can be combined with other on-site inspections. So if the certifying agent that a pork producer works with also has the ability to do other certifications that the pork producer desires or needs to have done, multiple certifications could be done during the same visit by that certifying agent. So here's a list. I mentioned that the part of the on-site inspection is to verify that the pork producer is maintaining their required records. I have listed here the different types of records that are required for the pork producer to maintain under animal confinement regulations. These are also listed on the guidance document that I previously mentioned, the pork producer on-site inspection guidance document. And we encourage pork producers to review the guidance before their on-site inspection. And we also encourage our private companies, the certifying agents who are accredited, to share this guidance document so that pork producers are ready and feel prepared for an on-site inspection. And you can see the final point there is that records are required to be available for not less than 2 years beyond their creation. So I'll mention this again in regards to a split operation. So a pork producer that is outside of California can operate and then be certified as a split operation. Again, this would only apply to pork producers outside of California, in that a pork producer inside of California would not be allowed to operate as a split operation based on how Prop 12 is written. So for these out-of-state pork producers, if they're choosing to keep breeding pigs that are Prop 12 compliant, they potentially could also keep breeding pigs at the same location that are non-Prop 12 compliant. They just have to have a plan, standard operating procedures in place, be able to explain, defend, show those procedures to the certifying agent, so the certifying agent can verify that the Prop 12 compliant can be segregated, prevent commingling with the non-Prop 12 compliant. So during the on-site inspection, for the purposes of certification, there may be non-compliances that are found. Most commonly, what we have found is that there is a non-compliance found regarding a specific record that's required to be maintained, in that it might be something new that the pork producer was not previously maintaining, but then for Prop 12, they need to start maintaining a specific type of record. So that being said, there is a process for all certifying agents to handle non-compliances when they are found during the process of certification. So again, these non-compliances, the same procedure would apply if CDFA was certifying a pork producer operation, or if one of our accredited certifying agents was certifying a pork producer operation. The certifying agent would provide a written notice of noncompliance that would include a description of the noncompliance, the facts upon which the noncompliance is based, and then a deadline, a date by which the applicant must correct each noncompliance and submit supporting documentation, or to submit a written rebuttal to the non-compliances. So that being said, the way that we see this working out in reality, as we've certified many pork producers over the last year, it's really communication of what the non-compliance is, communicating how things can be corrected, and then the pork producer demonstrating that they have made the corrections. So the final certification decision of granting certification will be made by the certifying agent that the pork producer is working with. So they will review the on-site inspection report, any other additional information that they need from the pork producer, any corrective actions if there were non-compliances. And then once the certifying agent determines that the confinement system and all the procedures and activities of the applicant's operation are in compliance with the requirements, then the certifying agent will make the decision to grant certification, and they will issue a certificate of compliance. And each certifying agent does issue their own certificate of compliance. There is a required minimum amount of information that is on a Prop 12 certificate of compliance. But that being said, the look and feel of each company's certificate of compliance will be a little bit different as far as thinking about color scheme, logos, things like that. If you ever have a question about a certificate of compliance, certainly can go to the website and make sure the certifying agent is listed on Animal Care Program's website, or reaching out specifically to Animal Care Program is allowed as well. So renewal of certification. So the Prop 12 pork producer certification is renewed annually. And so to renew the certification, they submit, the pork certified operation pork producer would submit an application to their certifying agent. And then their certifying agent will conduct another on-site inspection, verify compliance with all of the requirements. And then based on that on-site inspection, again, review of any additional information. If there were non-compliances found during a renewal on-site inspection, it's following a similar procedure in regards to notice of non-compliance and time to correct those non-compliances. Then once everything is compliant with all of the requirements of Prop 12 and animal confinement regulations, then the certifying agent would issue an updated certificate of compliance. Animal confinement regulations do describe how to handle adverse determinations by a certifying agent in regards to denial of certification, or a proposed suspension of certification, or a proposed revocation of certification. And these due process rights are for any pork producer operation that's working with one of the certifying agents, whether the certifying agent is CDFA or the certifying agent is one of our accredited private companies. A pork producer operation could request mediation, or they could request a formal hearing, go through a formal appeal process in regards to an adverse determination that was issued by the certifying agent, which would be either denial of certification, a proposed suspension of certification, or proposed revocation of certification. So again, all pork producers would have rights to these processes, and the specifics are described in the animal confinement regulations. So in summary, as of January 1st of this year, 2024, all whole pork meat sold in California is required to be from pork producers that have a valid certificate of compliance. This process of certification is with a certifying agent who the pork producer chooses to work with. And again, those are listed on our website. Certification always includes an on-site inspection by the certifying agent. And as I mentioned, for the purposes of certification, this is going to be a scheduled on-site inspection with the certifying agent. And if applicable, a pork producer will have the opportunity to correct non-compliances found by a certifying agent during the on-site inspection. This certification, once granted, is renewed annually, and during the annual renewal, it does require another on-site inspection. And also, there is an adverse determination appeals process that would apply to all operations certified under the Prop 12 animal confinement regulations. So thanks for the time and attention. There's a QR code to find all of our social media links. I have listed there the general animal care email address if you have questions related to Prop 12 and compliance. Also, there is our homepage, our animal care program website, which I am also going to show you guys where to find some additional information, like some of the guidance documents mentioned in this presentation. Hi, and finally, I wanted to show you how to navigate our animal care program website to find some of the guidance documents that I mentioned in this presentation. So here you can see I am on the animal care program homepage. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see a link here to guidance documents. So clicking here on guidance documents, this is where we have many resources for our different stakeholder types. Here, there's also short videos to help you navigate all of the different guidance documents depending on the operation type that you are. And here, if you look under the producer tab here, just click on it and scroll down and you'll be able to find some of the guidance documents that I mentioned in this presentation, such as the pork producer on-site inspection guidance, the sow housing guide, and then here's the general animal care pork producer guidance for how a pork producer is to comply with the requirements. And then back here to the home page, I also wanted to show you where you can find direct links to the animal confinement regulations over here under Prop 12 regulations. Also here, link to our statute. And then if you keep scrolling down here, reports and lists, this is the link to our certifying agents. So clicking on that, then you're able to look at the list of accredited certifying agents. Again, these are the private companies that have been accredited. And scrolling down, you can see the different ones. And if you want to see the work that they specifically do, so here, if I click on this accredited certifying agent, it will show the type of operations they are accredited to certify. It will also show the locations where they will work to certify operations and then some contact information. So keep scrolling down here, you can see the full list. And then government entities, right now it's CDFA, that can also certify operations at the request of a pork producer. So here back to our home page, and this is where you can finally find all of our contact information and also links to follow us on social media.
Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website for future updates.